Yesterday, Airbnb released their updated IPO filing, and today we'll talk about some of the numbers in it and when it can start to trade. And then there's Palantir. More news on Palantir moving the stock in the wrong direction today. And then finally, I have some news on an upcoming live stream that I plan on doing, so stay tuned for that. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. For anyone new here, my name is Kevin. It's great to have you with us. So earlier this week, we had our IPO This Week episode where we talked about the IPOs coming out this week, but in that episode, we also talked about C3.ai and DoorDash having released their updated IPO filings. And in that video, when we talked about DoorDash and C3.ai, we talked about the pricing expectations and we talked about what they're looking to raise and also when the stock could possibly start trading, which we talked about being next week. Yesterday, Airbnb released their updated IPO filing, and today we're going to do the same. So let's get to the numbers, and I have my trusty notes here. Airbnb is looking to raise $2.4 billion by offering 51.9 million shares at a price range of $44 to $50. At the midpoint of the proposed range, the company would command a fully diluted market value of $32.3 million. Now, if you've been with the channel, these numbers probably aren't a surprise to you. We talked about in a previous video about what the stock was trading on the private markets. So in that video, we talked about what the share price was valued at, and as of September 30th, that price, once you took in the effect of a share split that they ended up doing later, that the price was $34.88. So we talked on the channel before about when you find out that a company is going public, that whatever the shares were trading on the private market, you pretty much can add a little bit of a boost to that. It's not an easy percentage, and it's going to vary based on interest and whatnot, and how many shares are being produced for the IPO. Because remember, with an IPO, you're actually creating new shares. So we had a good discussion, and so I'm going to give a shout out to Flimsy Indo, one of our longtime subscribers, and we had a good discussion on that. And again, you can see on the screen where he had, based on some of the things we had talked about, and this actually goes back to the Palantir listing, about trying to predict what the stock price would be offered at. And as you can see on the screen, he's saying low to mid $40 range, which again is something that I saw in that discussion you can see. So again, just want to give him a shout out for predicting it, and again, just sort of matching where I thought it would come up. Now, and that's not to say what the stock will actually be priced at, because as we know, IPOs often get upsized. Sometimes they get downsized, but a lot of interest here. I think with Airbnb, there's just a lot of unique things about this with the environment that we're in with a pandemic. And we're going to talk about that in a comprehensive video that I'm putting together that I will release right before the stock starts to trade, talking about some of these conditions and how that can affect the price. So again, there's a little bit of uncertainty with that, but based on, again, what the valuation was on the private market and the interest in the company, the track record of the company. So again, we'll see how it comes out, where it actually gets priced. And that, again, doesn't mean that's where it's going to trade, but, just by looking at valuations, you can get an idea what the institutional investors are going to pay. And so that gives you a little heads up when you go into that. So as far as to when the IPO can happen, we're looking at it at Wednesday right now with possible trading starting on Thursday. Again, these things tend to be a little fluid and they can change, and there could be more updated filings. There could be, an increase in the range or the upsides or downsides. So whatever happens, I'll keep you guys posted. Definitely stay tuned to the channel. Keep those notification bells on so you don't miss any updates. All right, going back to valuations, let's apply them to Palantir. As you guys know, this stock has been going crazy over the past few weeks, and it's a company we've covered since 4 weeks before the company's direct listing. The stock had been going, like gangbusters. Had a little setback at the end of the week. There was news of Citron Research coming out with some guidance shorting the stock down to $20. This week, one of those things that can help, again, drive a stock, up or down, was analyst, and there was a downgrade. So just to share some information there, so I'm going to go back to my notes here again. Morgan Stanley analyst Keith Weiss downgraded Palantir to underweight from equal weight with a $17 price target. Some of the notes that he put were that the shares are up 155% since coming public with very little change in the fundamental story. The risk reward for Palantir is now decidedly negative, and the shares trading at 33 times estimated 2022 sales are double the average for software as a service stocks. This leaves the stock now trading at a significant premium to software peers, according to him. And then just as a quote from him, he says, "We believe much of the incremental moves since quarter three results are likely related to factors outside fundamentals, including strong retail, long interest squeezing strong institutional short interest." Some other things he mentioned: there are too many outstanding questions to sustain the current valuation, including if operating expenditure cuts this year will hurt growth prospects and whether Palantir will be able to add to its base of customers. So a couple of points there. So we had a couple videos last week, which there's a lot of interest in, and I appreciate you guys checking those out. While there's so much hype at the company pushing that stock higher, I always just talked about caution. And one of the things that I kept trying to relay in there, again without coming across as being super negative, is that one of the things I was looking for is what has changed that justifies how the stock had moved. And what this analyst is saying is, basically what I was saying again about a week ago, which was the earnings were good, but again, I didn't see numbers that just were crazy off the charts. And we did have some new contracts, which again should take the price up a little bit, but these were not contracts that I saw as being a differentiator. Most of them tend to still be in the government, and one of the things I've talked about for weeks, months now, is that I want to see more growth in the commercial market. And again, just not seeing that. And so while I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and I'm not a professional, as you guys know, I say that all the time. But when I hear an analyst come out with that same types of information, it sort of just validates the way I'm thinking about it. So again, it's just really important not to be pulled into the hype. So anyways, it's not that I look at this analyst and I'm happy or not, because I don't, I know so many people of you guys have shares and I want everybody to do well. And again, why I try to just preach that caution note that you guys have. I've just been around for too long. I've seen this happen over and over. And when you have a lot of people cheerleading the stock and so many other videos and calling these price targets, you just have to take that with a grain of salt and just think about what some of the motivations are. But going back to where we were, and again, this is a little bit of a review, but for a lot of you this might be new, was just talking about where the company traded on the private market. Again, I had a video that talked about this, but I want to give you some highlights. And again, back to the notes. So when we were looking back at the pre-listing and we were looking at what the company was trading for in the private market, we were considering that the average volume weighted share price transaction in the third quarter was $6.45. So looking at that, the investors were basically valuing the company at $10.5 billion at that time. And what was a little bit noteworthy is that was about half less than what it was in 2015. And then when you look back to July, Palantir actually had a private fundraising where they raised $410.5 million by selling shares at $4.75 a share. That actually brought the valuation down to $7.8 billion. Transactions during the quarter took place at anywhere from $4.17 a share to $11.50 a share, suggesting a range of $6.83 billion to $18.8 billion. But keep in mind that upper range where we talked about that $11.50, that came out after the news that the company was going to do the listing. So the stock definitely shot up. And again, we went over what the company was trading for in that valuation video, and where we had the chart that I actually pulled right from Investor Day from what the company showed that the shares were selling for on the private markets, really from January on through this year. So again, when you think about where the prices were trading out on the private market, this case there was not the IPO, so there was no new shares creating. Palantir actually picked a pretty decent reference point when you look at that. They set a reference point of about $7.50 a share. And so what happened is, and talked about this too, that it basically set up the company to show a success as far as a direct listing, because again, we expected a boost over that just because so many people have been wanting to get into Palantir, and now this was their first opportunity. So of course the demand is going to be higher, and so it traded around $10 that first day or so, and then the next few weeks, it traded in that $9 to $10 range. And I talked about how I really thought that was a fair price, and so when it started going up, it's not a surprise that it went up. There was some news, and the earnings were good, and there was some information of what funds were owning the stock and whatnot. But what I said, and again, I think this is where I feel a little bit validated, is from the analyst, is that the fundamentals really haven't changed that much to really drive it. And those are what I talked about in those previous videos. One, based on what the valuation we think the company is, and based on the earnings report, which were, again, good and very solid, but not mind-blowing. And then two, one of the biggest things I want to see is I really like the fact, and this is to me what makes Palantir such a strong company and solid company, that they have such a good niche in being into the work that it does for the government. But the growth is really going to be on the commercial side, and we just need to see that. There was a note in the earnings report, there was a $300 million contract from an aerospace company. We did find that was ended up being a renewal. But again, not seeing more that makes me see like a big, big numbers that are moving this company. So those are the things. So when you start seeing the stock go up, and I know there's a lot of people, making these big calls for these huge price targets, and I'm not saying that they can't get there. In fact, by the end of this video, by the time I look at the thing, the way this company is traded, I wouldn't be surprised if it's back in the mid-30s. But as far as what the company should be valued at, it's hard to justify those ranges. So again, I think based on what we know since the earnings, based on what we know is trading on the private markets, if it's trading in that teen range, it's probably justified. You can start getting into the mid-20s, into the 30s. Again, it doesn't mean it's not what the company is, going to be worth. But right now, there's just not enough justification to say it. And I think that's, again, the point of the analyst. And with that, I just want to give sort of one good comparison. So let's think of a strong company, and I'm going to give you Amazon. Anybody would say that that's a strong company. They are currently trading in the low $3,000 range, which I know is high per share. I mean, you look at that number, it's like mind-boggling. But we know that that company is doing well. It grows. It's the market leader. But even though it's a solid company, there's a point where you want to buy it and there's a point where you don't. And so to buy it at 3 times the triple the value of what it should be expected to be. So let's say someone decided to pay $10,000 for it. It's still a good company. It's not, but what are the odds you're going to get your money back anytime soon? Probably not. And so while we can look at Palantir and see that they have a good business as far as good government contracts. It's not a business where they're easily going to lose customers, so that's a very strong part of their business. But when you talk about where you need to grow, we need to see the commercial side, and again, not seeing that. So what's justifying the value to go up to where it was based on trading in the $4 ranges earlier this year on the private market? So those are some things to think about. And again, that's what I want to do with this channel. I don't want to be here trying to tell you to buy, sell, or hold, or what I think the price is going to be, because I don't know. There's a lot of things that go into it. A lot of people look into the future. There's just momentum. But what I do want to share with you is, when you're trying to figure out what a good price is, when you should go in and get out, those are the things that I want, you guys to sort of discuss with me. It's not because I learn just from you guys as much as you learn from me. So anyways, just want to talk a little bit about that. And finally, I just want to share one more thing about a live stream. With all of the big IPOs coming out, I want to do what we did with Palantir, where after they went public, I want to have a live stream where we talk about what happened on that first day and whatnot. Now next week there's quite a few big companies coming out. We have DoorDash, C3AI, and it looks like Airbnb. All 3 of those looking like they're coming out, and who knows, there could be more. But right now it looks at those 3. So what I'll do is we get closer to that time, I will give you guys an update of when I think we're going to do it. So I'll post it into the community post section. And I'll also hopefully have a better idea by the time I do IPO this week. So I'll put some information there as when we'll do the live stream. So again, I think it'd be a nice opportunity for us to discuss in real time of what happened with those new companies. And again, I always leave time to talk about some other areas. And again, so many people are interested in Palantir. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about there too. And with that, please like and share the video if you enjoyed it. And if you're new here, definitely consider subscribing. We'd love to have you join the community. We have a lot of great discussions in the comments where I learn as much as hopefully you learn from me on the channel. So really love to have the community keep growing. So definitely consider subscribing if you haven't done that. And with that, I want to thank you for watching. And until next time, have a great day.